You're listening to the Talent Therapy Podcast. Here, you'll find discussions around recruiting trends and best practices with talent acquisition leaders in the biotechnology and pharmaceutical industries so that you and your team are informed and up to date in an ever-evolving space. And now, here's your host, Chris Tamburini.
All right, welcome to Talent Therapy. Today, we have Mr. Kosta Haveles. Kosta, welcome.
How are you, Chris? Good to be here. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've been really excited for this conversation, genuinely. You and I have had multiple conversations and we've worked together pretty extensively over the past year or so. And I'd like to start, really with you, just like I start all these conversations, and get an idea of, how you got into recruiting and how you've developed a career, because you've really been in it for a long time and you've mastered so many different aspects of it. So I'm really curious, what was that first step into recruiting?
Oh boy, the dinosaur that I am, I have to go way back. So first there were glaciers and then the dinosaurs came. Kind of an interesting way, I think, actually through competitive intelligence. And I don't know if you remember the monster.com days, which I think Monster might still be out there. I'm not sure if they're still there. I think they're still a company, but so if you flash back to 97, graduated from Nichols College, business degree, living in Metro West. And I actually worked for one of the first internet service providers called Ultranet. They had 45,000 people on the internet that year, and they're one of the biggest ones regionally. So yeah, talk about bringing you back, right? So I was actually doing competitive intelligence as an intern and trying to find out what other companies were bringing, 256K dial-up service and all these crazy, we had these modems that made funny noises back then. So I was doing competitive intelligence and really into market research. And a recruiter from New York, from a company called Source Services, which was just purchased by K-Force, called me, and I had put my resume on monster.com because that's what everybody did back then. Like Monster was the only place you put your resume.
Yeah.
And I had put on there, my resume, and that I wanted to move to New York City. That was my dream, to move from Massachusetts, move to New York City. And I was going to do anything. I don't care what the job was. I just wanted to move. I wanted to get in a Ryder truck and go. And so he called me and he's like, I love what you're doing for this company. Do you know about recruiting? He could have said, something about Martians. It was the same thing. Like I had no idea what recruiting was. And he explained to me how, it's the art of finding people and hiring people for companies. And he's like, I'd like to fly you in and talk to you about this competitive intelligence you're doing, especially around your process. Because I had told him how I do it for the company and what I do for research. And now you have to remember, Chris, the internet was about like scraping IP addresses and finding people's emails, right? That's what recruiting was back then.
Yeah.
So I flew to New York, got the interview with K-Force with the gentleman's name. Are you ready for this? Was
Please.
Emil Okiboy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll never forget that because you can't. And if he's out there listening to this, he'll probably laugh at this because 25 years ago. But anyway, Emil interviewed me and he's like, I want you to do what you're doing for this internet company for recruiting. We need to find names of people. You'll provide lists. My team's going to call those people and you're going to make a lot of money providing these lists and filing these resumes and finding these people. And then our recruiters are going to call them and obviously pitch them these companies. So I love the concept. And he was going to pay for me to move to New York. So I think he paid like $2,000 between my Ryder truck and my lease and all that stuff, which not much of a reload package, but I was like, yes. And then moved to New York and started working for them. And literally my job was to scrape the earth and find people and provide them and make recruiters a lot of money on the agency side, really in downtown New York City. Yeah.
Wow. I actually had no idea that you started off in competitive intelligence. And that actually makes so much sense when you think about modern recruiting, and kind of the foundation of any good recruiter is the ability to identify and recognize resumes, right? That's where it starts. You have to look at a document and figure out whether it makes sense. And then there's a contact information piece. Um, in a way, I have to imagine that that's almost like a pioneering type role, because so much of that is automated now. All the things you're talking about, there's automation, there's technology to help that. There still needs to be people involved. So, all right. So you started off literally sourcing the internet. And I actually want to dive in because I'm curious about this. Like, where were you? What were your resources? Were you just like in Google trying to find like obscure resumes, or were you on like Monster? Were you hacking databases? Like,
Yeah.
I want to know what's going on here.
So it was it was actually really, talk about simple, right? We're talking pieces of paper, gold mine database, the computers that were the size of a house, right? We'd have this database called the gold mine database. And my job was to basically find email addresses, which you could strip the name. So if it's like C Tamburini, okay, how can I do some searches? And again, there was no Google. There was no such thing as Google back then. There was no LinkedIn, right? So it was really where could I find people on the www, World Wide Web, and what are they into? Find their resume, find where they worked, and it really was generating. Okay, like Priceline at the time, for instance, was down in Stanford. Okay, we need people from Priceline because we want to put them to another internet startup. So my job was to say, okay, how can I get everybody's name from Priceline? So I put in at priceline.com, and then up would come like directories. At that time, like the internet was full of like directories. So it was just populating names, and they wanted this on a sheet of paper. And I would literally give that sheet of paper, this sounds like 1930, that sheet of paper to these recruiters. And then I'd sit there and be like, wow. And then hear them on the phone, like completely make stuff up at that point. Like, hey, Rick, this is, Bob from K Force, got your name from a friend of a friend. And then they'd go into their pitch about finding out, what do you do there? Because they'd have no idea. All I would do is give them a name if there wasn't a resume. So interestingly enough, I really saw the art of generating names, which is really what LinkedIn is, right? And then, these days, obviously we have the companies there and their backgrounds, and we'd find them on schools, databases. So a really interesting, I think, funny. This one, people will love this one. One of our biggest ways to find names was to call the guy in the mailroom or the woman in the mailroom.
Yeah,
So
I heard about this.
Yeah, so you'd call in and you'd find out, who's in the mailroom. You'd somehow have to, get to the mailroom person, and you'd ask them to fax over. I don't know if you know what a fax is, but
I
we use
do.
these machines. Those are still around. So fax over the list of people in floor 6, because I need to send them something or whatever. And you try to get the mailroom person to give you the name. So, and we were paid on that stuff, right? How many names per day? So lead generation was difficult. Obviously, a lot easier these days in the connection of people. But I think that's where I really got the value of how recruiting works. In essence, it's coming up with understanding where people are and connecting them. Obviously, we're doing recruiting in a lot of different ways now, and certainly more advanced. But I learned on the basics, so a lot of this stuff seems easy, maybe because it was so hard back then.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. And
Less resources.
And I think it gives me an appreciation of the technology we have now. I mean, even when I started 15 years ago, the technology has progressed a lot since I started, and since you started, it clearly has progressed a lot more.
And
All
AI
right,
now. AI is the next one,
yeah,
right? So that's obviously next level stuff.
yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see how that's going to transform a lot of our processes, and it's just going to speed things up, which is ultimately a good thing. And I think we have a whole other conversation topic on that, but I'll sidestep that for now. All right, so back to you, but so you started off really doing fundamental sourcing, right? Building lists, using techniques, talking to the mailroom guy to get contact information. But then how did you actually get into the recruiting? Because it sounds like at that point you were giving information to recruiters and then they were actually contacting the candidates. So did you ultimately make the move to become a recruiter at that stage?
Yeah.
Curious.
So K-Force was a big company, helped them open their office in right across the street from Grand Central, actually. Even at that time, which you'll probably see as a common theme, I've really enjoyed smaller companies. So a couple of gentlemen from K-Force ended up starting their own boutique firm in Westchester County, and they were defectors, and they called me and they're like, "Hey, come on over. There's gonna be 9 of us, and we're creating this awesome environment. Small, do what you're doing for K-Force, just come over." I had a non-compete, but whatever. At that point, I'm like, try to sue me. I got $12 and a Ryder truck receipt somewhere. So I didn't have much to my name. So I went over and that's where I really learned the craft from a couple of the owners of these companies, Alden Associates and Winthrop Partners, and the ability to sit in we called it the pit with 9 other people and hear every single person's phone call and how they approach candidates and how they talk to hiring managers. I think it's given me a really great foundation for understanding the outside of the world to then go inside. And although I loved the external agency side and the hunt, and I'm a creature of change, not habit, right? So I love change. I love the fact that there's constant movement in the market and of candidates. I ended up meeting my wife, who was Cape Codder, and as I moved from New York, she won the battle from New York to Boston. We landed in Plymouth Rock, and where all the pilgrims go. And we landed there, and I ended up getting a call about contract recruiting, and that's how I got into contract recruiting in the storage disk drive business. With a talk about going to extremes, but they wanted me inside because of my experience that I had from the external agency side, and that was with a company. Quantum was the name of the company, which was then Maxtor, and it's kind of an industry that eats itself. There's constant mergers and acquisitions in that storage disk drive industry, and really stayed in it for quite a few years with really tech recruiting, um, hardware engineers, and learning the inside craft, right? Kind of going from that external to inside as a contract recruiter, and building the muscle of what is it like on the other side as a working with hiring managers. So yeah, that's kind of how I migrated from outside to inside.
Yeah, no, that's a really good story, and I think the training, the experience you have from the ground up sourcing piece gives you a whole other appreciation of the industry and how difficult it really is to recruit somebody, right? Like you're literally finding somebody out of thin air, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I think that yes, but I think what always hits me is every single phone call that you're on. It's difficult to find the right person and the right match, and keep a client happy or keep your hiring managers happy, whatever your objective is. More importantly, you're about to change somebody's life, right?
it's a good point.
So,
Yeah.
like, I always think about, like, one thing I always say to candidates is, do not give me an answer right away. As much as I want to close the deal, maybe on the agency side, I didn't say that. Maybe I wanted them on the agency side, but I always wanted to give offers on Fridays or Thursdays so people would have the weekend, because I never wanted the wrong decision to be made hastily. So I think for me, take the time, sit with your family, make sure it's the right decision. So recruiting is hard because you are about to change somebody's life. They're leaving their colleagues, they're leaving their commute to work, they're leaving that same thing they do every day, and they're going somewhere new. That could be scary. That could add stress. That could add financial changes in their life. That could
Hmm.
change the path of their career. And there's a lot of weight to that, right? I mean, I'm sure you feel it when you're recruiting somebody. They go to a new job. You're like, I hope this is the right thing for them, right? You buy into it, but it's truly hard because 6 months later they either call you and they're like, "You changed my life and it was awesome," or they tell you, "You're a jerk. I can't believe you recruited me." No, hopefully it doesn't happen too often.
No.
It has not happened often, but it is life changing, right? And I've gone through some really difficult times in the disk drive industry. I had to move. I think one year was like 80 people. We moved from Oklahoma to Massachusetts, and talk about selling your $75,000 mega mansion in Oklahoma to live in Westboro, Mass. And at that time, houses were like 4 times. They were buying homes. Those folks were buying homes for 400 or 500,000. And then we had a massive layoff 6 months later.
Oof.
Guess who they knew, right? Guess who they got to know. And that's really hard to sit there and be part of the team delivering that. We just moved you across the country. You sold your home. We've got these strange Massachusetts accents. You don't really know where you are. And you've uplifted your family and you have to let people go. So I take it really seriously, but it's hard for those reasons to me. It's a life changer. Right.
Yeah. That's something that you put that in a way that I've thought about it before, but I guess I haven't thought about it all the time. And you're right. Like I'm like, oh, well, you're just changing your job. You're changing what you're doing from,
Yeah.
8 to 6 every day. But no,
Yeah.
in reality, you are changing their life because that has a huge effect on a variety of things within their life, like moving their entire across the country. Um, that's a
Yeah.
really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Um, quick side note.
Yeah.
I don't know if you and I spoke about this, but I actually started my recruiting career at K Force as well, and it was in
All the
Burlington.
best ones do, Chris.
Yeah,
That's where I go. Just
apparently,
kidding. Yeah.
apparently, but
Yeah.
it was very short lived because I started with the scientific team there, and I was there for like 6 months, and then Aerotech acquired K
Oh,
Force's
okay.
scientific division. So I was there for literally a cup of coffee, and then I
Yeah.
spent the rest of my early years with Aerotech. So
Well,
funny
great. That's a
funny side note.
great organization. I mean, Aerotech. I think you know because we know a lot of the same people.
Yeah,
I owe. I mean, especially the last really 8-9 years. I think I owe Aerotech a check because I've hired more recruiters, sourcers from my team that became talent partners. I mean, if we mapped out the people I've worked with that have worked for me and I've worked for that have been, out of the Aerotech um, family, like
yeah.
yourself, just so successful. So what a awesome breeding ground. I mean, I don't know. When I hire recruiters, I kind of look at Aerotech first. So sorry, Aerotech.
No, yeah, it's
That's my source.
no. I mean, they're foundationally, fundamentally, they're the best. So,
There.
um, all right. So, I want to talk more about kind of your transition into. So you started off in your early days in the agency side, and then you moved into the corporate side on the tech side. And so but you've also your career has progressed in a lot of different ways because you started in agency in tech. You started being a contract recruiter. Then you were a contract recruiter in tech, and then you eventually moved into biotech. And so, and then there's another piece I think we'll talk about later. But
Yeah.
I'm curious about that move from tech to biotech,
Yeah.
and why you did that because that's a big move.
It's because of a Caesar salad.
Okay.
That's the story.
All right.
So are we supposed to name drop, Chris? Can we?
You can do whatever you want. This is
All right.
United States of America.
Free world. All
Yep.
right. It's Friday too, right?
And it's
Right,
Friday.
free Friday. So I was having lunch on Newberry Street with Mr. Chris Robinson from Third Rock, who he and I knew each other from literally our kids played soccer together, and we're both Plymothians, so pretty interesting. I looked him up. So my dad was battling cancer, so this is 2014, and my dad was battling for about 4 years over in Greece, and I really dove into cancer. I was like, how can I get him some help? Greece is terrible with their medicine and access to drugs, and I started thinking, I'm like, this is such an awesome industry, this life sciences thing, and a lot of my friends were kind of going into it. And I asked Chris to go to lunch. I think I bought the Caesar salad. We were having Caesar salads, and I asked him. I said, I'd love for you to open up any doors you can. And I was brave enough to ask Chris for help. I'm like, I just want to get out of disk drives and storage. That's where I kind of, I was just so bored of it, to be honest with you. It's just like, how fast can you make disk drives run? It's not really the most exciting thing. And I want to get into it. Here's why. And I don't even think he finished his salad. He picked up the phone and he called a company called Foundation Medicine, which they had just launched a couple of years back. And Chris called Wendy Durkin and said, "Hey, Wendy, you got to talk to Kosta. The next day I'm interviewing at Foundation Medicine. I have no idea what this place does. Literally walked in. I was like, I knew there was genetic information and genomics involved and testing. And I was pretty much, I couldn't be more excited about it.
Yeah.
I went in, met everyone, and Wendy was amazing, and Sarah Larson, and all the people that worked there. I was just blown away. How could you not be? 180 people at that point, and they had a town hall that day. And at the town hall, Mike Bellini, the CEO, and Vince Miller, the CMO, spoke, and it was just like something I'd never seen before. I mean, it's cancer, right? It's not disk drive. So they were passionate, and they had 180 people in the room, and they were talking about how difficult cancer is and patients and how important this was and deadlines, but not because they were putting something on a manufacturing plant, because they wanted this to help. And I was just like, I got to work here. I got to work in this industry. And then I got tapped on the shoulder, and Wendy said, "Oh, we want you to join," right after the town hall. They had decided the same day. And I was like, first of all, I was impressed with them. Second of all, to just get the team together while I'm at the town hall listening, it was just like this thing that happened. I talk about difficult. I had a perm job offer to go perm with SanDisk in the disk drive industry. It was going to be my first director level job. And this was going to be a 6-month contract. So I had to drive home and tell my wife that I'm taking a contract over perm. With a 6-year-old home and in difficult times and raising children. That's a difficult decision, right? And she's just like, "Are you insane?" I said, "Absolutely." But I got a good feeling about this, and it was the best decision I made. I mean, working with Wendy and Tiffany and Matt and the entire team there, I met people that are still, they're some of my best friends, and a lot of them. So it's the best family I could be part of, and 6 years there. So that was kind of the get out. So they needed the tech recruiting side that I had with their data science and engineering focus, but they were in turn, Wendy's like, we'll teach you the science and we'll get you involved in here. So it was like a perfect opportunity where they needed my skills and I needed to get that experience, and we got together. So I love telling that story. But Caesar salad.
Wow, that's a really good story. For all the conversations you and I have had, we've never discussed that, so I'm happy.
I saved it because we never had the salad, right?
That's true. That's true. We haven't had a salad.
Yeah.
My wife's a big Caesar salad fan.
Yeah.
But I imagine I'm going off on a tangent. So, all right, let me. First off, I had no idea that you turned down a director level role for a 6-month contract.
Yep.
Like, there's a few words that come to mind, but the first one is audacity, and the second one is gumption, and the third one is there's a lot of words. I'm not going to say the third word, but I mean, geez, how did that go over with your wife? I mean, I can't imagine. You have a child at home. You've worked your way up your entire career. You finally get to this director level role, permanent position within the industry that you've specialized in your entire career. And you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take this 6-month contract gig in an industry that I've never even touched.
And hope it works.
And hope it works. I mean,
she's had a lot of faith in me and a lot of, I mean, we don't have enough time on this podcast, but a lot of the things I've done in my career outside of, with certain investments and businesses I've owned and crazy things that I've done, which is literally a whole nother podcast. I come from the restaurant business with my parents growing up, and I dove into that. We made investments into sports complexes where I met Chris Robinson and invested in a local, a big project, but a local project. So I've done a lot of different things, and she's always had to trust my gut, but she also checks me, right? She also asks 75,000 questions to make sure I'm ready and I've got the answers. And there are times where she talks me out of stuff. This one, the experience interviewing there, like, you just know when you meet the people you're supposed to be with, was pretty strong. Number one. Number two, she knew I wanted to get into it. Number three, my dad's thing, and kind of like, hey, this is like, she knew I'd be all in, and I jumped all in. It was tough because we were just scared to say no to that role. So yeah, she supported me. I will tell you very, very quickly, the guy that I worked with for several years on the disk drive side of the world industry, John Scaramuzzo, awesome person. I remember calling him, and he was a tough phone call because I had gone company to company with him, and I said to him, like, here's what I got to do, and it came out of nowhere because it happened so fast.
Yeah,
And I told him why, and he goes, "Go for it."
that's
He
great.
goes, "Do it," and I was like, shit, if John's telling me like I got to do this and he's okay with it, right? So I was pretty pumped about that. That he gave me that support because he's the first guy that would be like, "Are you nuts? Like, don't do that. You know, you're making the wrong decision." And it was great to get that confidence. And yeah, I'm a risk taker in life. I mean, I always
Yeah,
have been. So a little bit of a risk.
yeah. I mean, isn't it? I can relate to that, by the way. But
Yeah.
isn't it nice to have a partner and your wife to, number one, bounce these ideas off of, talk to about, your desires from a professional standpoint, have her ask probably some really good questions,
Yeah.
and then have her support you, right? That isn't that a nice thing to have, that type of support in your corner? And we usually don't talk about personal relationships on this podcast, but it is related to a lot of
Yep.
things in recruiting.
Yep.
And it's great that she trusted you and supported you, because it makes that transition for you so much easier.
Yeah, and we've always had that, and now she's been basically a stay-at-home mom, for quite a few years, and now she's ready to jump back in and do things, and I'm repaying that favor, with what she wants to do and the things that she's like, oh, I want to get back into this and get back into the workforce, and she's working, but she wants to take the next step and get some certifications in the medical side. So it's really it's really cool to support each other. Beyond cool, cool is the wrong word, but it's special.
Yeah,
And it's, I mean, I'm zero without her, so she knows that.
that's
Unfortunately, she knows that's the truth. But yeah, I got two girls, 15 and 13, and my wife. So they set me straight. They tell me when I'm doing the wrong thing. Trust me, they tell me a lot. And but they've always been biggest supporters.
yeah, that's great. I love hearing stuff like that.
Yep.
And then you mentioned your the gentleman that you were turning the offer down from, and then he supported you. Like, that to me screams that he is extremely confident in your ability and respects you. And it also talks about, I think, the level of versatility that you personally have, and also the level of versatility it takes for anybody to be, I think, successful in this industry. And so, I'm kind of curious on your takes on that. Clearly, you've gone from one industry to another. You took a huge risk. You've made it work, and you've been unbelievably successful. And so, there's a lot of versatility that needs to, I think, be innate or learned throughout that process. What's your take on implementing versatility, if that even makes sense?
In our industry, I mean, especially now, but like I tell people that are getting into recruiting, or if I see someone that wants advice, and there are a lot of people that I've mentored, and I hope I've provided some good words of wisdom. There's nothing more important than trying every single thing. And I tell, especially, just take the HR umbrella for a second. I tell people, just try everything. I've literally tried comp. I've been a business partner. I've never done benefits, nor do I want to. Those folks are special and they're amazing. I won't want to screw up benefits. I could screw up comp, but I won't screw up benefits. I've obviously led teams. TA is where my knowledge is. That's kind of where my expertise is. But within talent acquisition, I mean, think about this: agent, sourcing to agency, recruiter to contract recruiter to multiple industries, leading teams, international recruiting, and now consulting, which we will talk about.
Yeah.
That's what makes me dangerous, in the sense, and not in a braggadocious way, makes me dangerous in the sense of, I feel like I can take on a lot of things for clients and be versatile. So if the market shifts, I can shift with the market, right? I think it's great to be amazing at one thing. I'm not taking that away. There's some people that are just like, this is who I am. This is what I want to be. that's awesome. If you find that, that's great. But in HR, it's so broad. I mean, there's 80 different flavors of HR, right?
Yeah.
It's so awesome if you can, at an early age, as you work through your career, try a bunch of stuff and just start marking the ones you don't want to do. If you hate them, just be like, I never want to do that again. But you might learn that you like the versatility, and that's where I was. I've liked doing a lot of the different areas, but I've kind of honed it into TA, right? It's the process, and it's building teams. Probably my favorite thing is hiring a recruiting team and managing the operations piece. But it's also like the talent branding and now all these new elements where it's so competitive out there. You have to really think about how you sell a company, how you go into the story of each company, and getting really intimate to understand what makes a company tick, and then being able to bring that to the market. That's really great recruiting, is when you don't have to call the mailroom guy, right? Like
Yeah.
you're doing it right these days. If it's like they've heard of you, probably. I talk about Foundation a lot, and there are so many other companies I've worked for. Foundation, Albireo, Valo. I mean, all the companies I've worked for. So proud of them, right? You build something, your name's on it, and if you do it right, your reputation's good, and people see that name and they see your name. Oh, you did this with that person. I mean, this is what you do, right? It's you connect the dots, and then if it's something that you delivered, whether it's a product to a patient or best place to work, if that's important, right? Whatever it is, it's just really about doing all these things, figuring out what you like. And then as I'm getting older here, it's like now I kind of have a really good picture of the things I want to do, and I won't do those things that I don't want to do. But I like the fact that I've been able to be versatile. Especially, like I said, I'm hearing from a lot of different clients that I need, and then fill in the blank. There are different needs that they have in talent.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you talked about selling, a company, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But in what I've also realized in life, sometimes the best way, and in business and in your work professional life, the best way to figure out what you like and you don't like is to try everything. Right? There's
Yep.
there's so many things that I've tried that I thought I wanted to do, and then I started doing them. Like, I actually do not want to do this,
Yep.
but then and it helps you, like you said, hone in on exactly what it is you thrive at, you're passionate about, and you want to do. And that is actually I will say there's probably people who maybe don't try certain things, and maybe they look back and maybe they say, well, maybe I should have tried more things to figure out what I like and don't like. But I think the best way to be happy in your career is to try everything within
You
reason.
have to.
Right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, it's just especially if you've really honed in on one thing. It doesn't mean, like, if you're in comp, right? There are ways to branch out in compensation, right? You can touch all of total rewards and benefits. You can be an expert in getting into the work from home, trend, right? And what we're doing there. It's working on international, not just U.S. based. I mean, you can really broaden. So even within the kind of the next layer down of HR, if you've honed in on one area, you can still within that area be versatile, right? I don't
Yeah.
expect comp people to be like, oh, does that mean I should recruit tomorrow? Well, if you're not comfortable
Mm.
recruiting, you don't have to, but like, don't be afraid of it. Like I've literally, I mean, we had a coordinator at Foundation Medicine ask me to go to lunch, and she's like, I want to be a recruiter. And not that it's that far away. It's sometimes a natural progression. And she was an amazing person. I'm like, you could be a recruiter within a year. You can be a recruiter within 6 months. She's like, that's what I want to do. We did our why, and why do you want to do it? What do you like about it? Well, I'm hearing these people on the phone. I want to do it. All right. We gave her a shot to try it. She's now head of TA at a small company. That was
Oh,
five
wow.
years. That was 5 years ago. She was a
I,
coordinator, a contract coordinator. She is now head of TA in a company and crushing it. Like, literally crushing it. Like, that pizza, right? It's always around food, Caesar salad and pizza, Blaze pizza. Um, yeah, it's just be versatile. Try it. If she didn't try it, she didn't ask for it. People forget to ask for things. It's like, ask somebody for it. Go in your organization and ask them for it. Don't ask when you're laid off. Ask before that happens, right? Or ask during good times. Ask when you're really successful. Like, what else can I do? How can I branch out? What can I learn? That's really something I've always tried to do. And listen, Chris, I've been lucky to have incredible head of HRs that I've worked for and supervisors, and they've given me a ton of opportunity, especially the last 10 years in this industry. So we got to get lucky too on the people side.
That's true. That's true. I think I know who you're talking about. And you talk about Versatility. If I'm not mistaken, she might have started off going to dental school and then ended up in recruiting. Is this the person we're talking about? I know exactly who she is. She's great.
Yep.
All right. So, you've talked a lot about versatility and touching a variety of things, and you've spent a lot of your time on the internal side, and now you're transitioning your career a little bit into the consulting side, which really screams versatility in every single way. You can't necessarily be a true consultant unless you know a variety of things and you've seen a variety of things.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious about what has made you want to make that transition.
I'd like to have a lot of Caesar salads with people that I want to eat salads with. I'm at a point, I think I've hit old age, or Costa's old idea of old age, when all that matters to me is working with amazing people with great missions. I've really just kind of zeroed in on that, right? So I think consulting allows you to find that.
Yeah.
And at meantime, somebody's paying you for your expertise. You're meeting these people, you're meeting these objectives, and you're seeing the challenges. And then you can choose to stay there longer. You can choose to go there permanent, or you can continue this path. So I think I told you I'm 6 months into this consulting thing and really enjoying it with this client. And it's nice to just be able to go in and focus on the areas that you love. I work with great people, which is awesome, and great objectives, great mission. So it's fulfilling what I need. So I think everybody coming out of the pandemic will probably be in this mindset that I'm going to share. Live today, right? Like,
Right.
I think a lot of us went into this pre-pandemic world, or lived in this pre-pandemic world of like, this is my path. This is what I got to go do. This is how it's laid out. This is my objective, right? I don't know. I get people say you got to have goals and you got to reach for the stars and have the North Star and have it up there. And there's something kind of freeing to just be like, I'm going to live for today. Don't know what tomorrow brings, world war or pandemic or whatever it is, rocket ships going up and not coming down, whatever's happening today in the crazy world. I really do I live that way in my work. And I also live that way with my family. I just get up and what do you want to do? We were less planning as a family. We're less planning, I think, is difficult for organizations these days. People are trying to plan and all of a sudden banking goes haywire, right? And throws a wrench in hiring plans. I mean, think about how difficult it is. I mean, Chris, the last few years think about being in HR and being responsible for the work from home and hybrid policies and hiring plans and how you're going to Zoom with people and what you can afford as a company. Do you keep your rental space? Do you let it go? Do you downsize? Where should people be commuting from? Do you relocate people anymore? Is anybody ever relocating again? Like, there's a billion different things. I'm personally at a point where I'm like, stop planning. Just focus on your patient, your mission, whatever it is you're selling, whatever it is that you're trying to provide for that market, and just be, right. And there's a little freedom to that for me. I don't know if it works. I'll let you know in a few years, but that's where I'm at.
I love that. I mean, you're right. You could have the best plan in the world and then it could get blown up a day later. Now, I think the mentality that you go into it with is refreshing. And in a lot of ways I can relate. In other ways, I do like to have kind of a broad scaffolding ahead of me, but I know that could change. It could change instantaneously. You just never know what's going to happen. So taking that approach it's positive and it's refreshing, and I respect it.
Hey, we've all been under just crazy stress, right? And it's not just the pandemic, but I think the pandemic has caused other ripple effect of stress. And I think people just need to literally chill, not worry about 10 years from now, right? I mean, I hope nobody asks people anymore, like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Because that's like, it's always been pathetic, but like, it's just really hard to even think about 5 months for people or 5 minutes. And I think people just need to know that it's, in my mind, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's being comfortable. To your point, you have your scaffolding, you should have a general plan. You should know what you're doing, but just stop being surprised if it doesn't go as planned, right? Because nothing has gone as planned for us as a society. I don't know.
No, I agree. 5 years ago, and I remember 5 years ago like it was yesterday, if you asked me, I'd be doing podcasts and I would be,
talking to me,
talking to you and running my own practice. I wouldn't have guessed it. And I didn't have 2 kids 5 years ago. So it just, things change.
Yeah.
I want to pivot and talk about kind of a fun topic. And it's a topic that you and I have discussed, and I think we're both pretty passionate about. And it's really part of the fundamental recruiting process, and that's selling a company, right? And selling a position. As a TA person and as a recruiting consultant, we're always selling, right? We're always talking about the good things and the real things about particular companies and particular positions. Based on your experience working both internally and externally, and now working as a consultant, I have to imagine you innately are an expert, not innately, but you've become an expert at selling, and now it's an innate skill for you. And so I want to get your take on that and what it involves to sell a company, because I know it's not just saying words. I know there's a lot that goes into selling a company that's real and genuine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think this is an awesome topic. You and I have talked a lot about it. You do an amazing job selling yourself and your services, and so you get this, right? People have to get to know Chris. People have to get to know what you offer. It's fundamentally the same thing. And I think, really think of it from the eyes of a recruiter, people ask, like, especially, during training, I want to be a good recruiter. Pretty broad statement, right? What's it mean to be a good recruiter? Somebody might say, I hired 50 people last year. Maybe back in my 20s and 30s, definitely in my K-Force days, numbers were everything. We had to make so many calls. We had to have so many things. Like, it was very transactional and the numbers. And I personally don't think how many calls a recruiter makes is not a metric I've ever cared about. If they're not making calls, right, that's a whole different story. If they're not talking to people, they are failing. There's a failure level there.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, right. So ultimately, I think selling is about, in any industry, but forgive me because I'm living life sciences for the last 10 years. So that's what my mind is. I keep my triangle, right? It's this visual triangle. And if I'm on the phone, if I'm training someone, if I'm talking to hiring managers, I always tell them to connect 3 different things. You have to connect the candidate with the employee and with the patient. And I think you can use that for your branding, right? You can stick a fork in that, and you can build every talent brand with that. You have to be able to describe what's it like to work at Rhythm or Foundation Medicine or Albireo, wherever you work. You have to describe what it's like to work. So our job is not just to describe the culture, but it's also, now when you're talking about the team, the employee, right? Oh, let me tell you about, and sometimes it's nice to talk about the hiring manager. This person in this, here's what they're doing. Here's what they've done the last 6 months. Here's when they joined. Here's what I love about them. Here's what they've accomplished, and here's what the impact has been on the patient, right? The third piece. So now, if you center yourself around, truly selling someone on the phone, has to have that. To me, that's been my magical thing, is like, let me tell you about the company. let me tell you about the team and the people and the person and the hiring manager and all that. And then lastly, let me tell you what we're doing for patients, why this is important for you to join X company. So that grounds me. And I think if you leave that phone call or Zoom call and that person isn't moved, you haven't sold.
Right.
Because if they're actively looking, they're talking to 6 Chris's and 2 Costas and how many other people are hitting them up, for great, great missions and great, great information and great companies to work for. So I look at it and I say, I got to share a personal story. Maybe sometimes it's about my dad. Maybe sometimes it's about why I've been inspired with the people that work there. Maybe it's what I've seen in the last 6 months since I joined the company, or 3 months, or a year, or what I love about our team specifically. Maybe it doesn't pertain exactly to them, but sharing a personal story about how something makes you feel. Now it says, all right, that person, man, I remember Costa told me that, and I'm feeling that. So if they do come to work for you, it also really, really binds you together, because they see you 6 months later and they're like, hey, I'm feeling that same thing. Like, this is awesome. And you were
Yeah.
spot on. There have been very, very few times where instead of the high five, I get to the punch to the face for hiring them. So I don't think anybody's punched me, or I might have ducked really well. But I can say that's what I'm proud of, is like really selling a company means giving them an essence of what it means to that employee that's sitting there. And if they become an employee, here's what it means as a candidate, connecting them and what it can do for their career. And we talk about that.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you right now, if a recruiter is getting on the phone, Chris, and all they're doing is, here's the job description, here's the hiring manager, there's 5 people on the team, here's where it's based, and just talks logistic, and they don't make a mark, very low probability you're going to nail it, unless there's somebody else doing that, the hiring manager or someone else. So training everybody on that team to sell, whether it's the CEO or hiring manager or the panel, it takes a lot of work to get the sell right. And
That's right.
companies just, we don't spend enough time talking with each other unless we're doing like a branding initiative, or we're doing something marketing related, and sharing a patient story. And the client I'm with right now, hearing from a mother dealing with pediatric situation, her son with severe obesity, listening to the mother talk about what it's done to her, psychological issues with the child, the older siblings and younger siblings, how they deal with it. I mean, these are kids that can't stop eating. Like they'll rummage through trash to find food because they've got salacial hunger, and not because they love food, because they literally genetically cannot function any other way. So like, if I don't share that during a call and what that means to me, they don't hear that story. They're just going on a website. I'm not sure many websites are screaming that experience, right? So
Yeah.
I really believe in selling whatever you're selling, or don't work for the company. If you can't sell it, don't work there. Like, don't fake it.
I mean, such a good point, and such a good story, because you're right. In recruiting, it can be very easy to just stick to the logistics, stick to the basics, and then you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit.
Yeah.
But in order to truly sell a company, you have to truly understand the company
Mhm.
from an extremely deep, genuine standpoint. Like you just told me that story about obesity. That's a really good story. And
Yeah.
that's not that it's a good story, but it's a real story, and it will allow people who are going to work at that company to understand how they're going to impact and make a difference. And it's real.
It is. It has to hit home, because you want them to get off the phone, turn to their wife, like I did for foundation, when I had to convince my wife, like, if they're not moved, right, or their spouse, I should say, if they're not moved, you don't want people moving jobs because of the money, or the commute, or the whatever else, fill in the blank. You really want, I mean, these days, if you're good at what you do, you could find a job. I mean, there are jobs out there. I know that, there are less, and there are people that are laid off, and I think we're going through a blip, and I'm hopeful we'll get out of this. But if you really focus on what you're good at, um, yeah, I think it's about the right company, and finding people with the same values,
Right.
and you have to love the mission. And if you're in HR and you're recruiting and you're not in love with the mission, do not work at that company. It's just,
That's right.
it's the wrong place. I've seen it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. You got to be happy and committed. Otherwise, you're just punching a clock.
Yeah.
And this is not the industry for punching a clock.
No, and take it out of our industry, right? Like tech's going through such a downturn right now, and we're seeing. I don't know how many people you're talking to, Chris, but I imagine people from tech are reaching out to you
Yeah.
about getting into biotech. I think it's because they want to be connected to their product.
Sure.
They're
That's a
probably
good
sick
point.
of working at the app company of the day, right? It's becoming like, what's the next app? Well, that app's gone in 6 months, right? And I'm getting a sense from people they don't want to be gone in 6 months with and replaced with the next best thing. And I think our industry is special, but if you're going to stay in tech, I think tech is an unbelievable place. Looking into sustainable energy and looking into all these new AI focused industries, and how AI is impacting not just drug development, but every industry in the world right now is getting impacted, from banking to whatever. It's just, make sure you're connected to, if you work for a bank, believe in that bank, believe that bank's doing a great job, and figure out why, and sell that, right? They always say, always be closing, always be selling. I'm always selling, but I have to believe it. I'm not.
That's right.
Just trying to sell anything, right? I just wouldn't work anywhere. So.
It's for me at least, it's impossible to sell something that you don't believe in, and that's one of the things I think I've taken for granted throughout my tenure in the biotech, in the life science industry, is that it's tied to the most primal instinct that you have as a human, which is to survive and live
Yep.
and be healthy, right? Those
Yep.
those instincts, that survival health instinct, is the most primal instinct that you
Yep.
have as a human being. So for that reason, I think our industry is always going to be safe,
Yep.
from
Yep.
a high standpoint. But not every industry has that luxury where you're connected to the longevity and health of of life, and it is something that I've taken for granted. But you know, whether you're in biotech or tech, you're right. There has to be some sort of passion behind what you're doing in order to be a really good salesperson, and or a good recruiter,
Yep.
and to show up, if you're on the technical or scientific side, to show up and be passionate.
You have to, and I guess this is kind of a message for those that right now are looking, I'm working with quite a few people that I'm helping. Just,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people reaching out. I'm sure to you too. Like, who do you
Yep.
know? The one thing I gotta say is, like, finding a job is a full time job, and it sucks to be in that situation. It really, I feel for people. Work on selling you, and if you're gonna do something for an hour besides laundry and all the other things that you're doing at home that are distractions, sit down and think about your journey, think about what you love to do, get ready to talk about that when you're interviewing. Get ready to sell yourself, especially if you're trying to change industries. It's really important right now, and be ready to answer right, we're in biotech and you've been sitting in, you've worked for DoorDash or you've worked for whatever company, you're trying to make this pivot. You better be ready to really wow them, to be like, here are the things I've learned. Here's another time in my life I've pivoted. Here's what I love to do. Here's why I think this job is great, because it lines up with these 3, 4 things that I've done, but really what I want to do. It's all right to talk about your ambitions,
Yeah.
but get your 3-minute pitch, and just work on it. And if it's 5 minutes, get it to 3, because people don't want to hear guys like me talk all day, right? But work on your 3-minute pitch, selling yourself. It's just a massive thing that people can really forget about. So I think that's the biggest advice, is get ready to sell yourself, and it's smiling and being positive. Even if you're laid off, you have to really sell that I'm going to join your team and be a positive person
Yeah.
on your team, right? Because nobody wants to talk to somebody that's down and out and feeling bad. But I know it's hard, but it's part of it.
Yeah. That's a great way to conclude this, just with that piece of advice. And this has been great conversation. I think, extremely interesting and valuable for anyone who is going to be listening, for the audience. And this has been great. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Chris. And it's been great to get, to know you over the last year, and, continued partnership with you on a lot of things in life, and always just staying connected. And thank you for putting this awesome podcast together. It was a pleasure talking to you today, every day.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine, Kosta.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Talent Therapy Podcast with Chris Tamburini. This show is for entertainment purposes only and is copywritten by Rana & Vance, LLC.